Hey friends, welcome to day 30 of our 31 days of watercolor practice. This month has been so much fun and we only have one more day after this, but today is our last day of painting florals. So I'm going to give you kind of my secret sauce to creating a beautiful floral composition. So let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, this is our last pre-recorded video. Tomorrow I am going live for our last video, but today we are finishing off with a floral composition bouquet. So I touched on it a little bit yesterday by talking about our border and how I like to work in odd numbers when I'm putting together a bouquet. If you have, 4 flowers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it creates this kind of square look, it just doesn't look as appealing as if you have more of a triangular look. So we're going to kick off the basics of how I like to do my bouquets, and let's just get started. So like I said, I like to work with about 3 to 5 flowers. So pick the flower shapes that you'd like. You could do a rose, you could do peonies, you could do whatever you'd like. And then another big thing is to think about your color palette. What kind of mood do you want to portray? Do you want to have like a nice cool tones? Do you want something warmer? All of that plays into how your bouquet is going to look. I tend to go for the more warmer tones. That's just my preference. But maybe even swatch out what kind of colors you would like to use for your piece beforehand. So just test out a couple combinations. Maybe I'll do, no, that's too bright. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. I want a bright red this time, and then like bright yellow. I love my warmer colors, especially right now because it's summer. And then like a soft pink. Let's even use white watercolor. Why not? Let's just give it a try. I typically don't use white watercolor. It makes it a little bit more opaque, but I just love the pastel kind of look. And then my favorite green is always my go-to green. It's my olive green. And then I might also add more of like an emerald green, this kind of one. But I'm going to add a little bit more blue, I think, to it. I want it a bit more bluish. Gotta just figure out what blue. Like that. And there is my summer color palette. Okay, so now that I have my colors, we're going to get started. My 3 flowers are going to be these colors. Remember, it's always good to work with our values. So we have these really bright saturated colors and then the soft pink, which really makes it pop. When you have 3 bright saturated colors, like if I did a really dark pink with these 2, it just might be too much and too overbearing, which is why I like to pick like a soft color with 2 bright ones. And I think I might make the pink one more the focal point because it is softer, and then those 2 are kind of framing it. So I'm just taking my pink. If you don't have white watercolor, that's okay. You can just water it down. Okay, and I'm going to start by making a rose. I don't like to go right in the middle. Again, we're trying to create this kind of like triangular effect instead of, something that's more symmetrical. So if I have them exactly like a triangle right in the middle, it looks a little off. So I like to try and make it a little bit off center. So I'm going to start with this like rose shape with my soft pink. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. I don't even know if that's really going to make a difference right now. I'm going to do my curves with my pressure compound stroke. Make it a little bit bigger as we go outward. And we have this beautiful soft pink. Now I do like to make it a little bit darker in the middle so it has a bit more contrast to it. It's not just all one soft color, but I like to add a little bit of its complementary color. Do you guys remember when we did our complementary color mixing at the beginning of the month? Adding its complementary color dulls the color a bit and it acts as a great shadow color. So just a tiny bit of green to my pink creates this darker pink, which is a really nice kind of shadowy color for it. Okay. Like that. Then I'm going to do that brighter reddish orange. I can't remember which one it is. Is it this one? I don't know. And I'm going to do like a poppy, I think. Really nice, bright poppy. So here's my imaginary center, and I'm just doing these really jagged leaves going around. Now I want this flower to be pretty saturated in color just because it's so nice and bright, and it's a really great contrast with the pink. Now these are two side by side. We're going to balance it out by having the third one down below so it's not super symmetrical. I'm just making it really, really loose. And I'm going to just take a little bit of indigo, make it a little bit darker in the center, or you can just take a darker red if you'd like. Just for a little bit of shadowy bits there. Maybe some lines. Then I'm going to do a yellow one, kind of facing downward. So I'm going to do my center there, doing another kind of poppy. I have my longer petals on this side, so it looks like it's tilting down, a tilted perspective. And then on this side, it's going to be shorter petals. Okay, maybe a little bit of orange to them, so it's a little bit warmer of a yellow. Now I got quite the color bleeds here into this rose, but I'm fine with that. If you don't want your color bleeds, remember what you have to do. You have to wait for it to completely dry first, okay? Add a little bit more orangey to these, like so. Then I'm going to go in between my flowers to create some leaves. So I'm going to go in between where these two are meeting. I'm going to do a little curved stem, and I'm going to start creating some leaves. Remember, create your contrast, lighten some of them up so it looks a little bit more interesting. Okay. I like to make this dark, or like have a darker leaf right next to this really light flower. Also frames it a little bit nicer when you have that light and dark contrast right beside each other. And then one final one. Again, I'm working in threes. This is just like a really basic composition, my kind of go-to composition. There are other ways you can do it. I actually just did a tutorial on my Patreon of different kinds of floral compositions you can do, different color palettes and different shapes and all that stuff. So if you want a little bit more about that, you could always become a patron of mine if you've enjoyed these lessons this month. Okay, so we have like our triangular shape. I might try and add a little bit of green just in between here. Okay, and notice that when I do the leaves, they're really tucked into those spaces. If I do the stem really far out and then start the leaves really far out, there's going to be a lot of white space in between those, and you want the bouquet to look like it's smushed together, like they're really tucked in tight with each other. Okay, so now I have my other blue I want to use, and I'm just going to start adding some more leaves going around. Okay. They can be coming out every which way. They don't all have to be the second kind of green. You can have a little bit more of that olive. You can mix it together. And I'm just kind of starting to frame around these flowers. Now, if you want to add a couple other buds or something like that, you can always do that as well. I might try and grab a little bit more of this like light pink and balance this area over here by creating like a little bud. Okay, I wouldn't put it right beside it. We want a little bit more balance to it. A little bit of like that, maybe a tiny one there too. Gonna grab my green, have a little bit of a bottom to it, and then have some leaves poking around. Maybe another leaf over here. Okay, and then I'm going to maybe grab a little bit of that red. I could do a couple little red buds over here. Again, opposite side, so it's well balanced. I don't think I'd put it beside here. I want it more diagonal. Again, I'm going to work in threes. So I have 3 little buds here. Okay, grab my green, my little stem. Like so. And it doesn't have to be a rounded bouquet necessarily. Now, looking at this, there's a lot of white space here and here. I don't want too much focal points on these areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten up my color, and I'm just going to frame these areas with lighter leaves. Okay, so it's kind of going around, but using really delicate colors so it's not as overbearing. That makes sense. Okay. I just like to make it really light, like almost a barely there wash, like where you can barely see the color, but it's still going to frame it nicely so it doesn't look like there's all this white space. Okay, see how that kind of works really nicely? And then just fill in any areas you feel like needs a little bit more volume. Again, work with your contrast in the sense that it may need contrast in shape and size. So like little dark sprigs of leaves to help kind of tie it together in some areas. Looks really, really nice. Okay. You don't want there to just be contrast in your values where it's light and dark. You want to have different shapes as well. It just kind of helps frame it nicely. And then obviously you're going to finish off your centers of your flowers so they're not just sitting there. I'm going to grab my smaller one and do a little bit of detail. Okay, so again, try and work in odd numbers. Work on contrast with your values, but also your color palette. If you're going to have some bright colors and flowers, have a nice soft color to balance it out so it's not all super saturated, just so you have little areas that will stand out a bit better. This one is still a little bit soft. I would grab a little bit more now that it's dry and just do a little bit more detail on it just so it stands out a little bit more. It's still soft, but it's not getting lost. There we go. See that? Just adding a little bit more darkness in there. There we go. Okay. And then just frame everything nicely. Have your stems curved, have them nice and tight to the in-between of some of those flowers. I'm adding a little bit of shadow in here just for a little bit more depth. And you could really just keep going. Okay, but there is our finished floral bouquet. I really hope those tips helped. I do have other videos on my channel. If you look up Emma Floral Composition, there's a few others you could take a look at if you want to continue with this. But otherwise, that's about it. Thank you guys for joining me for today's video, and I will see you for our last live stream tomorrow. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow for our last video. Have a great day, guys. Bye.